How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here and welcome back to World of Tanks console news for next week, or at least on Tuesday for the game. And what are we going to get? Well, there is some whole host of changes that they're going to be doing to some of the vehicles that are within the game, and we'll get into that in just a second whilst we recap some of the stuff you can take advantage of right now on the game before Tuesday, so you can use that to your advantage. And first things first is that there is, of course, the points earn operation for the T26E5 Patriot that you can actually go and check out a full look at the operation itself. But essentially, it's just basically logging in and then getting points by completing a set of objectives. And then there's like multiple stages. Every single stage you get slight rewards until you get to the final stage where you get the premium Tier 8 American Heavy, and which is the Patriot T26E5. And then, of course, there is the damage dealers operation where you can pick up 5, if you place in the top 5 damage dealers, you'll get extra silver, which is really nice. And you can use that on Cold War if you want to maximize the silver that you want to get. That's highly what I would recommend in my opinion. And then we also then had the big booster sale, so you could pick up times 5 XP boost, times 8 commander XP and times 2 silver boost, so you can use those if you're interested. I would highly recommend before using them that you actually save them till we have an event like the XP with interest or some of the other bonus XP events where you can utilize them and get a bigger bonus than what they actually give you just when you use them normally. And then, of course, there was the trade-in event, which is my least favourite event. Personally, I just find it not particularly great, but you guys are probably well aware of my opinion on the whole trade-in event, and of course, you can use it if you want to. But the next thing that we have is, of course, for next week, and there are a whole host of changes that Wargaming are going to be doing to a ton of tanks, whether they're premium or actual tech tree vehicles, and we can speculate as to what they're going to do to these vehicles to make them a little bit better, and of course make them more in line with some of the newer premiums and of course the newer tech trees that we've been seeing within World of Tanks. So the first ones that we've got, let's start off at the tier 10s and work our way down to the tier 8s and tier 7 tanks. And the first one that we have is the tier 10 American M48A2 T54E2. So this is the gigantic kind of... It's basically a giant version of the Renegade at tier 10, and it's not particularly very good because the armor just doesn't really work. And it hasn't really got a whole lot of things going for it. I just found it a little bit weak compared to some of the other tier 10 American medium tanks in the game. It's kind of a little bit lackluster. I feel like it could probably do with maybe just a buff to its armor, maybe. But, you know, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it's just the worst version. Is it drastically worse than everything else? Probably not. But, you know, at the same time, it is the worst, I would say, out of the lot of the tier 10 mediums from the American line. And then we've got the Swedish STRV-K. This is a tank that I was not surprised to be seeing. I found it a little bit weak in the game. It's kind of like this hybrid between an Emil 2 hull with a Centurion turret, which is why they've called it the STRV-K, since it is the Swedish line, but just shoved a Centurion turret on the top of it. It works pretty well. I found it decent. Was it overpowered? Was it super underpowered? No, it just needed a little bit of a buff, a little bit of love, and maybe they'll give it better accuracy. Maybe they'll give it maybe a little bit more alpha. Don't know. Guess we'll have to wait and see. And of course, we'll cover that on Tuesday when the update goes live, so you guys can see the differences between all of the vehicles. And then from the German line, we've got a whole host of tier 8s, which include the Panther 88, the Panther 2, the Indian Panther, or the Panzer, and then, yeah, that's the German line. So it's basically the German tier 8 medium tanks. The Panther 88, I would expect that all of these are going to get buffs to their gun, or at least that's the kind of tanks that I would expect to get those. Maybe they'll get boosts to engine power so that they're a little bit faster, making them a little bit more mobile, although they are fairly mobile in themselves. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do with these, but I would think maybe they'll just boost the accuracy to make them like super accurate, or maybe they'll, yeah, boost up that engine power to make them just a little bit faster, especially with the Panthers. And of course, maybe give them some more penetration, since I think that the Panther 2 and the Panther 88 are not particularly great with regards to their standard penetration on their top gun, and also when you look at their stock packages, they're really awful, and they could do with a little bit of love from those lines, including the Indian Panzer's stock package as well. So hopefully they'll make it a little bit better. Then we move on to one of the worst French tanks in the game right now, the AMX CDC, which is the Tier 8 Premium Medium tank, and that includes the CDC Black, so of course the kind of Black Friday edition of the CDC. All of these tanks, inclusive of the CDC and the CDC Black, are essentially this fast, mobile, good gun depression French tank that's supposed to have good DPM, but in today's meta, DPM not so great, and that can really come up with some big problems when it comes to competing with some of the newer mediums that also get armor and they're more kind of able to bounce a lot more shells than the CDC. It's basically just a free pen for anyone that can hit it anywhere. So yep, you are basically a walking, talking big bag of hit points, and of course you do have the mobility, but it's nothing outrageous in today's meta. Very good, mind you, but in order to get that kind of speed, what they did back in the day is usually things were good at doing one thing, or at least good at doing one specific kind of role within the game, as opposed to what they do now, where they make one aspect of the tank pretty much bad and the rest of it very good when it comes to premium tanks. So the CDC essentially very fast, can get into position, use that gun depression, use the DPM, but it has no armor, so it makes it awful. And also when you're moving, the dispersion of the gun is horrific, absolutely horrific, which makes it terrible to actually play. So I'd highly recommend you guys go out and think about potentially picking this one up. It's a fairly cheap one, and maybe you've got it in the garage, so on Tuesday I'm going to maybe take it out for a test drive, and we'll do a video on the CDC at some point. And of course some of these tanks that have been reforged and made slightly better, maybe we'll make a series where we look through all of them. But moving on, we then have the Chinese 59 pattern and the Legion 59 pattern. So these are tanks that we could have picked up as part of the season pass from last season. So it's nice to see that they'll be buffing this. I would expect that maybe they're going for some buffs to maybe the armor model. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe it'll be the speed. Maybe they'll increase the DPM just slightly. Maybe they'll increase the penetration as well with these tanks to just bring them more in line. And I think that would be a good place to go. And then there's the Tier 8 American M48A2 pattern and Undertaker, both of which, you know, fairly okay. They're just not brilliant tanks at the tier, so nice to see them getting a buff. Then we have the British tanks. So these are the Huntsman, the Atomic, and the Centurion Mark 1 now. And of course the Centennial Chieftain as well. So these are all getting buffs. I would expect that since they are all very similar in the way in which that they play with regards to being British medium tanks, that maybe they'll give them all a buff to DPM, or maybe they'll give them all a buff to accuracy, and yeah, make them just a little bit better in general, or maybe they're going for like a turret buff or something for them all. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe it'll be a speed boost, because that'll be nice to see the British tanks being able to get up to a little bit of a more of a competitive speed in World of Tanks console. But then moving on, we have the Tier 8 Swedish STRV-81 and Primo Victoria. So these are the Swedish medium tanks, so much like the British medium tanks. I expect, because of the British ones getting buffed, that since this is basically a British tank but under the Swedish banner, it will get the same buffs, so buffs to accuracy or aim time, etc., to make it more in line. And then we've got the Tier 8s from the Soviet line. So we've got the T-44 and the T-54 prototype and Motherland. So the Motherland is a separate kind of skinned version of the T-54 prototype, all of which were good back in the day when they were first introduced. But with the T-54 prototype in today's meta, with the penetration that it gets as its premium rounds being very bad, considering some of the newer ones, yep, I would expect maybe they'll buff the penetration of those rounds and the standard pen, and maybe they'll make a few adjustments to the view range or something like that maybe. So that'll be good. And then we've got the Soviet heavy tanks. So we include the IS and the KV-3, both of which I thought were very good. So I was Shocked to see the IS on here. I thought the KV3 was actually a bit of a sleeper when I played it. So yeah, I mean, both of these were, in my eyes, pretty decent. I mean, they don't get armor necessarily. The KV3 does at the tier, as long as you're playing top tier up against tier 9. So you don't have armor, but then again, no tier 7 heavy tank up against the tier 9 has armor. So no surprise there. But yeah, KV3 IS, I don't know what they'll do with them. Maybe they'll give them a bit of a buff to the gun handling. Maybe they'll give them a little bit of a speed boost as well. So we'll have to wait and see for that one. And then the medium tanks. So we start off with the T54, the Object 416, the T44-100, and the 430-2. Now, I was very interested to see the 430-2 in here, since if you watched the last video on the channel, which was the Object 430-2 review, we had a look at that tank and it was surprisingly good. I thought it was very, very good when you are fully upgraded. The stock one, you have to fire premium if you want to be competitive, which sucks and is annoying that Wargaming still do that, in which the stock guns have terrible penetration with their standard rounds and okay penetration with their premium rounds, and not even okay, pretty average / below average, even when you consider it to standard ammunition of the top gun. So yeah, kind of a bit of a sucky one for the stock grind, but as soon as you get that top gun, very, very powerful. 416, however, the tier lower, so that tier 8 medium tank, definitely needs a little bit of love. Not particularly great in the game. I feel like it didn't quite give you everything that you wanted within there. Maybe they'll buff the armor model slightly, I don't know. But I'd never got to grips with the 416, and I'm sure that there are people that enjoy it, but for me, not particularly great. So nice to see that getting buffed. And then the T54, so the one that leads on to the 140, the T62A. Yeah, definitely an interesting one to see, and maybe they'll give it just some buffs to its gun handling. Not entirely sure. Or maybe they'll remove some stuff, because of course this could be nerfs as well, but it'll be interesting to see what Wargaming do with all of these. But like I say, it's usually like gun handling changes or some slight boost to top forward speed and kind of dispersion values when moving. There's not a whole lot of kind of full armor redesigns and stuff like that we saw with something like the T28, the tier 8 American tank destroyer recently, which got completely redesigned in its armor model and was now one of the best tier 8 tank destroyers in my opinion. So that was very interesting to see. But other than that, what do we have? Well, we have the Battle of Dunkirk. So this starts on May 26th. So I believe it's on the Friday. So you'll be able to jump in. And this is the deal damage in British, French and German vehicles to earn extra XP. Usually it's 1.25 XP or 1.5 XP. And it's a 5-part challenge that resets daily. So you can complete the challenge multiple times throughout its kind of operational since it's actually available. So that they usually do it between like Friday and Sunday, or maybe they'll do it until the Tuesday. So, you know, you've got quite a bit of period of time to do it and get that extra XP. And then, of course, there'll be a 50% sale on skins. So this is usually includes the typical skins. They're not usually some of the... how do you say it, like season pass skins and stuff like that. You can't usually get those at 50% off. So that would be nice to pick up things like the E100 skin or the, you know, Jaeger skin or something like that. Yeah, interesting to see. Maybe they'll even bring in a skin. Obviously not confirmed, but we may see one. Then equipment is 25% off, so that's nice, so you can pick up equipment. Highly recommend you do purchase it on a sale rather than paying full price, and because you can always sell it again, and you won't lose anywhere near as much silver as you would if you just bought it off of the sale. And then there is the 30% of off British, French and German World War II tech tree and premium tanks. So 30% off of all British, French and German World War II vehicles, which is really, really good. Looking forward to that, since I want to pick up every single last tank in the game on this. Then there is also Memorial Day, which gives you a weekend of 3 times XP. So that's on the 26th. So you'll be able to take advantage of that as well. And there's usually a bundle in the store. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but it's usually like a charity bundle that goes towards some sort of memorial charity in the game. From experience, that's what they usually do. Whether that's the case advice. Don't go buying stuff if it doesn't explicitly say on the package this goes to charity, if you're wanting to give it to charity, obviously. But there are usually some sort of charity kind of bundles that go to some charity that Wargaming deem to be a good cause. So just stay tuned for that. And of course they usually aren't very expensive. It's like £2 or something like that, and I don't think any of the any profits go to Wargaming and stuff like that from memory. But of course maybe that will change. I have no idea. Maybe they won't do it this year, maybe I've got confused, but I'm pretty sure that they usually do like some sort of charity event. And then there is also free XP conversion rate bonus. So instead of your usual 1 to 25, oh no, it's now 1 to 28 instead of 1 to 25. Usually they do a sale of like 1 to 35, so it's not particularly the greatest. I mean, an extra 3 XP per gold, not particularly fantastic. And then gold to silver conversion bonus, so 1 gold will get you 600 silver instead of 400. If you are going to be buying silver with gold, I highly recommend you never do it. It's much better to buy silver boosters and play 1 game of Cold War than it is to use gold to be able to just get silver outright. That's just my opinion. And then there will be a new premium contract for the VK7501K, or otherwise known, if you haven't already noted, the Icebreaker. So that is a pretty good vehicle. It's kind of a rear mounted, almost like a VKB, but at tier 8 as a heavy tank. Its armor actually somewhat works in a top tier game and even tier 9 game. So it's nice to see that tank. And maybe we'll do a review of it when it does come out. And then, yeah, that is pretty much it. And then there is also a new map that's going to be returning as well. And they've said it's a winter map. So maybe we'll be able to see Sevorogorsk. Now, I have no idea if that's actually going to be the case. I'm just speculating. But a winter map, it would be nice to see Sevorogorsk back in the game. But yeah, that's been a game or a map that hasn't been in the game for a long time. And it was actually a pretty decent one from memory and experience. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what you guys think of all of the tanks that they're changing. What would you add to the list? What would you think, oh no, that tank is more than capable right now? And what would you remove, etc. Yeah, be interested to see in the comment section down below. And of course, remember to join me back in the next week where we will be going back to full daily uploads. And of course, from here on out, going back to daily uploads. So yeah, please berate me in the comments if I miss an upload. So yeah, just yeah. Anyway, hopefully you guys did enjoy the videos, and of course join me back in the next one. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend if you are watching this on the Sunday. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic next week, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.